uh, Here we are on Spirit Focus with Robert Painley. Thanks for joining us, or me, I guess, today, and us in general. I guess if I was the royal one. Just wanted to talk a little bit today uh, uh, about spirit and how sometimes I have to negotiate with spirit. So this is going to be a show for people who are mediums and people who are maybe fascinated by what I do when I talk to spirit to try and get spirit to cross. So before we start with that, a couple housekeeping items that I usually do to begin every show. One, I just want to publicly on this channel thank Rosie Shapiro. We had a phenomenal Zoom event last Sunday. We had a lot of people on there, and it was an evening of hope and healing. And we were able to touch a lot of people's lives and give a lot of great messages. And hopefully Rosie and I will get together again soon and do another one of those events. But for all of you on this channel, depending on which channel you're looking at, I appreciate you joining us and joining in for the event. It was a great time, and look forward to doing it again. So thank you, Rosie, and to Frankie, and to your husband, George. Thank you for all your kind hospitality in New York. So number one, thank you. I also want to give a shout out to Terry Angel. And so I get it right here. I want to make sure I remember exactly the name of what she's doing now, because I think I messed it up when I was looking at it earlier. So I want to make sure I get the right one. And she's doing a journey of healing, and it's her Peace on Earth tour. So I would have screwed that up. So do check out do check out Terry on this journey, and keep abreast of what's going on through that process, because it's amazing. And finally, my husband Mark Bianchi is going to be doing his show tomorrow at noon, Mindfulness with Mark Bianchi, and you will catch him here on the same channel, whatever channel you're watching on, because we stream on the same channels. So you can catch him here and learn about how how you balance your money and spirituality. And I think his topic tomorrow is going to be on different aspects of home economics and how you can improve your life through the things that you're doing in your home to save yourself a little bit of money, and how this all ties into what you're doing in life and how to make your life better. So those are some things that we can talk about from a housekeeping perspective. I did write down, because today's topic is going to be a little challenging. It's a little bit different than I've done before, because some of these stories I may have told before, but I haven't talked about negotiating with spirit. And so I want to backtrack a little bit to talk about what that is and why I have to do that. And sometimes what happens with spirit is that spirit can get caught. So you have a variety. So let's get back to general basics. One, you can have residual energy. You can have energy that is spirits that come back and visit, that have already crossed and come back and visit. But you can also get spirits that are stuck. We're going to talk about those spirits that are stuck and why they're stuck, and what I have to do sometimes to move them along. So let's talk about that sometimes, and look at what has to happen when I get them. When I get them as stuck and have to move them over. So today, let's talk a little bit about being a medium. And in this case, when you find to do what I do, I have to do certain things to understand what spirit's trying, what's happening to them, what's happening to their soul, what's happening to their journey. So if you are a lay person and don't have a gift in this way, what will happen here is, it may be fascinating to you how I get things, or how other mediums get things, how I get them in particular, and every medium is different. How I get them in particular really has to do with, I can see them, I hear them, I communicate with them. Sometimes I don't see them, and they're communicating in this little TV area that I have up here that lets me know what's going on when they are not strong enough perhaps to see them in spirit, in apparition form. So what I do at that point is I really try to figure out what's going on with the spirit. And some of the things I wanted to write down that I talked about, that I wrote down earlier today, was when you do this as a medium, understand that sometimes, well, I guess all the time, in my experience, spirits keep their general personality when they cross. So when they're stuck in this zone in between planes, I'll say it that way. When this happens to spirit, you need to make sure that you understand that they can still be nasty, aggressive. And if they've been there for a while, they could be very aggressive and very nasty, depending on why they crossed or why they haven't crossed exactly, why they, what happened on their journey to crossing and why they get stuck. So one of the things that you need to know is that this negativity can be dangerous at some time because they can be very angry. So if you are a medium, be very, very cautious with how you approach certain spirits. Yeah, sometimes you don't know right away. And I'll give you an example of that. Would be I've encountered spirits that have had, perhaps we would call them mental issues on this plane, where they may have had they were schizophrenic, or they were institutionalized in some capacity, or their emotions got the better of them and they committed suicide, or they were killed in an accident, or they were having a fight, and that aggression that they had at the time that they crossed sometimes crosses, it goes with them, it changes, and um, and they can get stuck at that point because of their emotional state. All of these things can happen. Sometimes it's for benevolent reasons, sometimes it's for other reasons. So let's talk about the variety of ways that people get stuck and how I've encountered them. And it runs the gambit. Every spirit is different, just like every person is different. So when I look at certain spirits, such as someone who committed suicide, sometimes there is remorse there. Sometimes they didn't know that they committed suicide for example, from a drug overdose. They don't know that that they have passed from this plane, that their body died here on this plane, and that they are now in spirit. They don't understand that sometimes because the last thing they remember was injecting maybe the potential effects of the high that they were on, or the journey they were on through this drug-induced state, and don't know that they've crossed. It can happen where I've had people who have had accidents, car accidents, where they've had drowning accidents, fall accidents off of high places, electrocution accidents, all these types of actions where the people didn't expect to pass and don't realize that they have for whatever reason. Then come the other issues where I've had people who got stuck who have had dementia or Alzheimer's, or have had these different types of maybe developmental issues or issues of the brain, and that cognitive ability, that reasoning ability sometimes causes them not to cross. Similarly, with people who, surprisingly enough, were very religious on this plane, and then when they have the opportunity to cross, sometimes they get stuck from the aspect that they think they self-judge, and they don't think that they were good enough for whatever reason to cross, to make the full crossing, and they get stuck in between. So I mean, there's so many reasons, and I could go on and on with these, but these are the ones primarily. There's all kinds of exceptions and things that I've encountered, but these are the primary reasons of souls that I've encountered that have had these types of issues. So again, knowing that they can be challenging entities to work with, challenging spirits to work with, be cautious. So if you're a medium, make sure that you protect yourself before you go into any type of situation, because again, if it's benign, then you don't need all the protection, but make sure that you do armor up, as it were, before you try to do anything on this in this manner. If you are a person who's in a home being affected by this, please make sure that you get a medium who can address the problem, because if they can't, it can ramp up that energy where it becomes very challenging and very difficult in that home, and make the situation worse. Where you're calling somebody in there, you're trying to get the situation resolved, and it's just not, and it becomes very, very problematic, worse than it was before. And also, I will tell you that sometimes when clients call me to come to their home, the activity will ramp up between when that initial call happens and when I go to the home, because the spirit knows what I'm coming to do. They already know. They're tuned in. So there can be problems on that side as well. So try not to be fearful of and understand what they're trying to do. They don't want me to come. They're trying to scare you to get me to not come, because I need to do what I need to do. And they know what that possibility is. So having all of the circumstances out there and trying to figure out what type of entity or spirit or soul you're working with, then you need to go step back a little bit. And once you protect yourself, go in and have the confidence necessary that you can do the work at hand. And understand and try to talk with these energies. I like to make sure there's several ways to get people to cross. I personally like to have the soul's journey and that crossing to be as kind and easy on their soul as possible. So I try to talk with the spirit and talk with the soul and find out what is happening, why they're stuck. Try to understand what they're feeling, what they're going through, and try maybe to do almost a mini reading of that soul so that I can try and get an understanding of how I can best help them. In this endeavor, I will call on, obviously, Archangel Michael for protection, but also Archangel Azrael, who is, most people call him the angel of death. But from an archangel perspective, he's not only there he's in charge of crossing souls. So having his assistance with this is my go-to. I will work with him and make sure that if there are any messages for the living that need to go out for my client, for example, sometimes these entities are known to the client, sometimes they are not, because they maybe have been in the home and people moved in, and that activity starts to ramp up at that point. So having a great understanding of not only what's happening with the client and what they're telling you, but understanding this soul, trying to understand what's happening. Now, I can go ahead and just do a banishment. And that is just basically, I always liken it to when you have an old Western and you have where you they're taking somebody, they throw them out the saloon doors. I can do that, and we can move them along. That, as easy as it was for those cowboys to be thrown through, the glass windows or through saloon doors, is about how easy it is for the soul. Can it be done? Absolutely. I choose not to do that unless I have to. Have I done it? Absolutely. Some souls are just uncooperative. They won't understand, particularly if there's, again, these issues, these mental issues involved, that they weren't coherent, if they weren't cooperative in life. The chances are of them, that happening when you go to cross a spirit in this sense is going to be very, very difficult. So I want to kind of give some examples, and I wrote down some general ideas. And sometimes when I negotiate with spirit, it's a negotiation, and I'm maybe not trying to cross them. And one of those examples is, it's a couple of these stories I may have told before when I was doing Robert's Haunted Pajama Party. But now the reason for the negotiation is important. So my husband, Mark, and I went to a cabin in the woods up in Helen, Georgia, just outside of Helen. And it was a vacation rental home, and we got it for a week. And we decided to go up to Georgia. We got up there, and I already had a feeling, as I do before I got there, that there was going to be an issue. We walked in the door, and there was an older gentleman in this home, and he was 60, 65-ish. This was his home. It was his cabin. People who bought this cabin turned this into a rental unit, but he was still there. This was a place that he wanted to be, wanted to remain, and didn't want anybody in it, quite frankly. And so the picture of the cabin was one of these loft cabins where there was a stairway that went up, and the entire upstairs of this unit was, a couple beds up there and dressers and that sort of thing. But there were no other rooms up there. Bathroom was downstairs, the kitchen, the living room, a dining room, and another bedroom was downstairs. And so Mark and I got there, and I felt him already. And as Mark, we had the dog with us, and as Mark went to check out the rest of the cabin, I felt this guy immediately. He was angry, didn't want us there. And so I went in to the second bedroom and just told him that, look, I've rented this place. This is my space now for this weekend. I will close the door downstairs in the bedroom and I will not bother you. We won't bother you this weekend. This is your space, but I paid for the space. I'm going to be there. He can ignore us. I will ignore him. If he wants my help in some way, I'm more than happy to help him. If he's comfortable where he is, fine. I will leave him there. And so we had this negotiation because I didn't want to be bothered, and I wanted to have a nice vacation. And the spirit too, understood because I could talk to him what was going on and not to be afraid, not to be upset. There was no reason for it, and just gave him his space, and we kept our space. Little did I know that my husband, who's extremely curious from time to time, most of the time, decided to, for whatever reason, go into this bedroom multiple times on a daily basis to look around and I guess see the space he rented. I don't know. So you can ask Mark on his show tomorrow. So while I was doing this, the first night that we were there, I had no idea that Mark had gone into the room after I said this. And I didn't want to scare Mark. I didn't want him to be afraid that there was this kind of relatively hostile gentleman here. So we decided to, we went upstairs to the loft and went to sleep the first night. And as we're sleeping, there were, these footsteps, distinctive footsteps going up. There must have been maybe 25 stairs, 20 stairs at least, going up to this loft. Pretty steep climb up into the loft area. And we were laying in bed, and the dog, who it wasn't super needy, but she was sleeping in one of the suitcases, actually, just laying in the clothes and sleeping on the suitcase. She all of a sudden got startled, and she ran over close to the bed and just started whimpering. And Mark and I distinctly heard the footprints, the footsteps coming up the stairway, and it was slow, jump, 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 and the fear kept building because we didn't, we were in this cabin by ourselves in the middle of the woods. There wasn't anybody really around us, and we didn't know what it was, and we're kind of petrified. I had a feeling of what it was, and you heard it come up to the top of the stairs, and it just stopped, and nothing was there. And Mark and I just continued to look. We didn't make a sound. It was the strangest evening because we didn't make a sound at all, just waiting to see what was happening. Neither one of us got up the entire evening and did anything, and went downstairs to go to the bathroom. Nothing. We just stayed upstairs. It's not so much that I was afraid. It was more that it was annoying. I knew that I was going to encounter him if I went downstairs. I just didn't want to deal with him. I felt that I already had dealt with him. And so now I'm in the situation where he's not cooperating. I feel he's not cooperating with me. And why is he doing this? And it's scaring Mark and the dog. And I had told them that this gentleman was there. So the second night, this kept happening where we felt things and it was uncomfortable, and it didn't really escalate too much after that. But the dog really wanted to sleep with us and refused to go downstairs or do anything by herself, hung around us the entire time. And we spent as much time out of the cabin as we possibly could. When we went to leave, we're driving down this long driveway to get back to the main road to start our trek back to Fort Lauderdale. And as we were driving down the driveway, I just reached over to Mark and said, "Hey, by the way, I had to tell you that the house was haunted. This is what I did, and this is what I negotiated." And that's when Mark informed me that he had been going in there every day. So one of the points I'm trying to make here is, if you make an agreement with a spirit, keep your word. Because they will act up if you do not keep your word. That's part of the process. You're negotiating with them. And this also happened. Okay, that's just one story of what happened when, unbeknownst to me, we did not keep our word with what we were going to do. And so he acted up and tried to scare us. The process of scaring us was to accomplish what? Was to get us out of the house. And what does he accomplish by that? He has his space back to himself, which is what he wanted all along. So this is what they tried to do when you have an angrier spirit, an angrier entity like this, who is, and he didn't cross because he was comfortable where he was. This was his cabin. This was his space. He really didn't have any relatives that he felt that he needed to be with or wanted to be with. And this is where he wanted to be and live out his existence, his spiritual existence in the space. So that's one story of a negotiation that went poorly. I've had other negotiations that have gone poorly as well because of circumstances. And one of those was going to see a woman who had a house that had a very powerful spirit in it and had it in there for years in the mother and father's bedroom. It was in there. The whole family knew about it. The father and the mother were very protective of not letting any of their children ever go into their room. There were reasons that I won't go into here, and this entity was attached to the father for a particular reason. And the one of the girls who lived in the home called me and said that she had her parents were going away for a week. Would I come and please get rid of this entity in the home? And I said, of course I will. And so that was the first call. And after that, the activity in their home was crazy. It was off the charts. She didn't know what to do. She called me and told me, hey, Robert, please don't come. It's crazy in the house. I can't have you here. It's really bad. So I told her, you have three options. One, deal with the spirit as it is and let me come down and remove the energy from the home. I said, you can go ahead and just live with it the way that you have for the past several years and move out of the house. I do not believe that this entity is going to follow you. This is with your father. This is not going anywhere. Or you can go back to the way things were and go back to a detente situation where, you just tell this entity that you'll never contact me again. And and I won't come and it can do what it wants. A couple of days later, she called me again and said, look, okay, the activity went down again. Why don't you come and do this? And right after that happened, the activity started right back up again. She called me a second time and told me not to come. And at that point, I just told her what to do, which was to go sit on her bed and just explain to the spirit that she was sorry, that she will never do that again. And I've never spoken with her again. I just told her, go back to the way things were. And she's talked, we have a mutual friend, and she's still not thrilled of being in the house, but the activity stays confined to that one area. They know what you're doing. They know who you're calling. They know what your intention is. And so when you have that happen, as I explained before, that activity can ratchet up in your home. So just be aware of that. And if you're calling a medium, try and get them at a point where they can come relatively quickly, relatively soon, and don't have it be pushed off weeks, because if that activity starts, it can just continually increase and get worse for you while you're in the home. So those are a couple stories of negotiations that went bad, or badly, I should say. So when did it go right? There are a few, again, those are one, I couldn't do anything about it because I really didn't, this wasn't a client of mine. We were trying to get to that point, but it never happened. The other one, we were on vacation, so it really wasn't a client involved either. This was me not understanding what Mark was doing and dealing with the situation as it changed. Had I told Mark probably right off the bat that this was haunted and this is what I did, circumstances probably would have been different, but we've learned from this experience to communicate better when we're on holiday and I know that there's a spirit about. So most of the time, I think every time that I've been with a client, the situation has been much stronger because my intent and my mission is to make a home comfortable for the people who live there. So one such example happened relatively recently when, as I was returning from my trip from after doing the Zoom event with Rosie, stopped off at a place and a woman there had an issue with another gentleman whose house it was. She was kind of running the show, trying to make things better for this individual. And the spirit was just incredibly nasty. It wanted to be with her husband. It was doing everything she could to make sure she would be. And this meant trying to injure him, kill him perhaps, so that he would join her. But what the spirit didn't understand, okay, a side note here, what the spirit doesn't understand is that while his spirit, while she may have been successful, that spirit would have crossed over perhaps, and she would have been stuck still because she didn't cross to begin with. And she's still going through this process and creating problems. and she's got some life lessons to learn. So it's a whole aside. If you have questions on that, I'll get into that in greater detail, but it's not really germane to the story. What is germane to the story is getting down and negotiating with this woman. She didn't want to go. She felt that she was much better, and that people, what the energy was in the home, that she really wasn't being, that she was maybe being victimized in some way through what the intention was that she really wanted. She told me she wanted to stay. She did not want to go any place. She wanted to be with this man. This is a person who took care of her all her life, and she just wanted to be with him and his energy. And we couldn't let it happen. She needed to move on so that she could continue her spiritual journey. She would encounter him again, or once she crossed, she could probably come back. So that was the negotiation, was, look, once you cross, then you may come back to see him once, because, and just from a standpoint, because once they cross, then they understand kind of the error of their ways, their errors in judgment, and the negative aspects of what they were trying to do to begin with goes away, because now it's all about helping that person. When you get into God's light, all of those negative emotions go away, and you're only dealing with, hopefully, somebody's best intention or their best life course, and trying to help them pursue that through other means, through ways of improving their life, never from a negative perspective. If you have questions on that, again, let me know. But here with this spirit, it was necessary to have this negotiation to say, look, you will go, I'm going to cross you over. And once you do, and once you've learned some lessons and how to comport yourself by returning, you may return once. And I told the gentleman that, what was going to happen, that she would appear to him one time in an awakened state, and just see her. They won't be probably able to communicate at all, but when she comes back, that it's not going to be from a bad perspective. So that he didn't get concerned with why he was seeing her again. He had felt her, had experienced her, and all these things prior to my coming there. And so we just want to make sure that when she did actually cross, that he understood that seeing her again wasn't going to be a negative event for him in his life, that it wasn't an omen for additional visits or anything else, that this was a one-time event, and basically to say that she was sorry for what she had done and what she'd caused in his life. So it's a touchy situation, and these people, I just saw them, so they may be watching this, and I don't want to give too much of their personal information away. But if you do have specific questions from a medium perspective on what I had to do to go through this negotiation process with the spirit, just let me know. I am happy to teach mediums all the time. I have a lot of clients who are mediums. I have a lot of friends who are mediums, and we collaborate. One of the greatest things about, again, going up to see Rosie Shapiro was that she's a great collaborator. I talk to Rosie quite frequently and collaborate, and she gives me advice on cases that I work with here in Florida. And when she's got questions, I'm happy to answer those as well. So anybody that does this, light workers need to remember that there's no ego involved in what we do. We're all here to help one another and to try and really calm things down in the way that we can. So if people are having issues, our job is to make sure that we make the living space or the area or the land or whatever we're working on a better place than how we encountered it to begin with. So do try to be cognizant of that. Don't worry about what other people do, how they do it. But if you can help other mediums, if you can help other people, especially if your skill sets are compatible. For example, so there may be a medium who doesn't see well, but hears extremely well. And you might want to collaborate with somebody who does see, but maybe not hear as well, so that you can work on these cases together, so that you can address the situation that needs to be addressed, whatever that situation happens to be. So let me look at anything else here. So I talked about keeping your word. We talked about other negotiations that I've had. Another such negotiation was one that someone didn't know he had passed, and he passed while drowning. And this was maybe 10 years before I encountered his energy. And in his world, again, I think I've told the story again on Robert's Haunted Pajama Party, we'll talk about the negotiation part this time, because what was happening with this gentleman was he had died in the surf here in the ocean, not south of Fort Lauderdale, between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. And he was caught up in the surf, and his whole energy was all about, all he could see was kind of this brown and gray water, and hear the ocean roaring and tumbling and turning over, and not understanding what happened to him. It was constantly in the state of rolling over and over and not knowing that he had passed. So what we needed to do at this point was to basically give him a spiritual smack, just to get his attention. And I liken this to when you see a child who has his finger near a light socket. You don't try and reason with Johnny trying to pull his finger out of a light socket. You maybe smack his hand. You may just yell at Johnny, just get his attention, and jar him out of it in some capacity. And that's what I had to do with the spirit in this case. And this instance, the spirit had a lot of, it wasn't so much anger, it was frustration and not knowing really what to do. Because anybody that went into the space, any male energy in particular, it would try to latch onto the male energy because it was trying to latch onto the energy to save him. Because in his mind, in the spirit's mind, he wasn't dead, so he's trying to save himself, not knowing that it was not going to be possible to do. So when I finally got his attention, got the spirit's attention, it was to the effect of, and having to tell a spirit, which I don't enjoy, but telling a spirit that you are dead. I'm sorry, and I hate to say dead because it's a spirit and they're still on the process. We use that term all the time, but in transition is a better term to use. So his soul was in transition, it was stuck. And to get him to understand that he needed to transition fully into God's light so that he could move on. And so again, like I said, he had been gone for about 10 years. His daughter, I felt his daughter's son, and then he was married at the time that this happened, and told him that his wife had remarried, that his two children are now 10 years older than they were before. So they were actually young teenagers, and one was them had already left home to go to start to college. And tell him that he will be able to see them, but he needs to cross first. And he understood immediately, because he was finally, after 10 years, at peace. He wasn't in that turmoil. He wasn't tossing and turning, and he understood what he needed to do. And it was probably one of the easiest crossings I've ever done in my entire life, because he just understood what he needed to do to cross. There was no hesitation. He understood the necessity of crossing, being with his loved ones, and then being able to take an active role, perhaps as a spiritual guide for either his wife or his children or anybody else in his family. And his soul understood that right away. And it was actually beautiful when it happened. And one of the things that I'm happy about was, again, I love win-win-win situations where the spirit's happy and goes on with his spiritual journey. The client is happy because that energy is no longer in their home. And I get a sense of satisfaction because I've done what I needed to do from a soul perspective of helping. My job on this plane is to help these stuck souls find their truer path and where they need to be. And that's what I did. So it gives me a great sense of satisfaction when I do that. So these are all areas that and stories that I could tell you about spirit and what happens with spirit. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about that, but I don't want to carry on too long about this, and because I could give examples, so many examples of how many times this has happened. But again, going back to you as a medium, if you are a medium, please make sure that you understand the process that is involved. If you are still developing your gift and you do not think that you can handle this, please find a medium who can help you understand and to best work with these energies so that you don't make the situation worse than you started. If you are a homeowner or a business owner and you believe something in your place, make sure that you do find a qualified medium that can help you do this type of work, because it's incredibly important that these spirits find their true path. If you can imagine the frustration that some people have on this plane, if you're stuck in a dead-end job, if you're stuck in a situation of addiction or abuse or something, and you can't get out of that circumstances, this is what the souls sometimes feel like. Not all the time. Again, some of them don't realize that they have passed. But many instances, it's frustrating to the soul when they can't move beyond a place where they are, and they're getting no satisfaction from the place where they are stuck, and can't move forward in their spiritual existence, much like we would feel if we were stuck on this plane. You get frustrated. Some people go into depression. Some people drink. Some people try alternative substances to numb the pain of their life instead of trying to find ways to improve their life. So our job as a medium is to try and find ways to help these lost souls. And I'll give one more example before I turn off tonight. One would be a house situation that I was in, where there was a person who was a bit of a vagabond through his life, because he was not completely, I hate to say it, but not completely mentally capable of making decisions in his life. So he went through life basically panhandling and getting food and pushing a shopping cart around town, around Fort Lauderdale. And this man died years and years ago, and found a secure place in an attic where he just felt comfortable. No one bothered him. There was no entrance to the attic. Nobody put anything in it. He was there for years. And it was just his happy place. It was, I guess, or just where he didn't feel in danger, didn't feel at odds, but there was a mental illness here. And trying to get through, again, I'm not medically qualified. All I can do is they tell me, my guides tell me, and sometimes the spirit will tell me, or just through the interaction, what's going on in their existence. And from that, I try to, through 30 years of international business and experience and managing people, I'm very good at trying to figure out how to motivate, or how to understand the problem and try to find resolution to it. And in this circumstance, it was trying to get this soul to understand what was happening, why they were doing this, and understanding how to get them to a better place. He was not thrilled with my presence. He did not want to go anyplace. But we talked for about a half an hour trying to get him to understand it. He would move from the attic into a closet and back to the attic, and he was frustrated, didn't know about me, didn't know if he could trust me. And all these things I could feel and sense and understand about what he was going through. And finally got to a place with him where he needed to just feel the warmth of and understand how to cross. I had my mom come across to have her interact with him. And these souls can feel the energy when it's in God's light, and know that it is a good soul. And because it's only going to come from a place of goodness on that side. So it could feel my mom's energy. He also wanted to see an angel. So I asked for an angel to appear, and they were gracious enough to show one. And it made him secure enough to feel like he could cross. And that too was a beautiful crossing, because he just reached out to my mom's hand, and I saw a flash of light, crosses to the other side. And I know that he's in a better place. And all of the anguish, pain, and difficulties they experienced on this plane were now gone for him, because all of that mental illness and the fear and the anxiety and all of that just was gone. And now he could be in peace, understand his journey, understand what he needed to do to move forward, and that his guides on the other side would help him in that process. So it's amazing what a medium could do to help these souls. It's amazing what the living, as we call them, the living, or people who aren't gifted and don't see, maybe perhaps, but know that something's going on in their home, and how they can affect a positive change on these souls' lives. So try not to be afraid. Sometimes they're trying to get your attention, and sometimes that attention can come through in a scary way. I understand that, but find somebody who's qualified to understand and take that fear out of the circumstance, because almost, I would say 90% of the cases that I work on aren't fear-based. They are people trying to contact people for a particular reason. Once the reason is known, the activity stops. Or I need to cross the spirit and the activity. A lot of times I go and it's somebody who's already crossed. They don't need to be crossed, but they're coming to visit, to give warning, to give guidance or advice, and they're not paying attention. So understanding the reason why the spirit is there, what we can do. Is it somebody who's stuck versus somebody who's visiting, or is it some type of residual energy that needs to be addressed and just cleansed, so that the people on this plane don't have to deal with that energy any longer? Just make sure you know what you're doing, and try to help those people who can't see, sense, feel, hear, or sense, or I think that was one of them, in some capacity, so that we can do what's necessary for these souls' journeys. Okay. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to help in any way. If you're a medium and you don't know if you have the exact skill set to make sure that you can do this type of work, let me know. Let's have some conversations. Let's maybe test your ability, maybe come on a clearing or a cleansing with me, so that I can help you and we can teach one another. And maybe hopefully I can learn something from you. You can learn something from me and continue to do this work. Other than that, I thank everybody very much for joining. I'll be back next Tuesday. We'll talk again about spirit and other things, hopefully that are helpful to both mediums, and maybe some good stories out there for people who are curious about this topic matter, and maybe need some examples of quote unquote life after death, or just basically for me the transition of the soul from this plane to the next. So thank you very much for joining me this evening. If you need to contact me, please reach out to rapainley@gmail.com. You can visit me on Instagram at Robert Painley Medium, and you can get to me on Facebook on my public page as well. And just leave me a message. I'm happy to get back in touch with you and see what we can do to help out any situation that you're working with. So thank you very much. Have a lovely evening and a great rest of your week. And stay healthy and well. And for all those dealing with the fires out in the West, please stay safe. And our prayers are with you. Take care. Have a good day.